All right, we are going to go ahead and get this thing started. Thank you for everybody who's in the audience and in attendance to this keynote that is a part of a 3-day series. This is day 2, as you all know. A 3-day series covering race, faith, and justice. The title of the conference is Achieving Justice After Ferguson and Campus Demonstrations. In the audience, we have Dr. Costello. We have several VPs. We have conference attendees who have been holding down the conference for the past day and a half. And Brendan Underwood, of course, our key moderator. I want to thank you all for coming out sincerely. And without further ado, I'm not going to hold you out any longer. I'm going to ask that Mr. Etefia Umana, who is the chairman of the board of Better Family Life, do a self-introduction. And then proceed with his presentation. You all are in for a treat. This is by far I have a biased personal favorite part of the conference. The nature of the discussion is going to be very enlightening and enriching. And without further ado, Mr. E, self-introduce.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank Jonathan for his diligence and hard work and the things that he's done to make this conference work. All the hard work and the assimilation of the panels and the follow-up, the constant phone calls and the like. It's paid off significantly, and I'd like to show gratitude to Jonathan if we could give him a round of applause. And I would like to thank also my mother, who is in the audience right now. Would not be here if it was not for her, Etefia Umana. I would like to thank Dr. Costello, the individuals that are the boards of trustees, the Jesuits, Dr. Jonathan Smith, Regina Walton, all those individuals that took the time out, their energy, their efforts to make this conference a good conference and to make this conference prosper in a certain kind of way in this inaugural phase. In addition to that, I would like to thank, I have a lot of thank yous. First and foremost, I went to St. Louis University, and there were many, many good years here. It was a beautiful struggle. That's the way I would like to classify it, but there are many professors, some of whom may be in the audience, Dr. Emmanuel Walaka, Eddie M. Clark, and the like. And I'd also like to pay a special tribute to Barbara M. Woods, who was one of my mentors and the director of the African American Studies Institute, and also Dr. Aaronette White. They are with the ancestors now. They are no longer with us, but they had tremendous influence in terms of my life and my development, my scholarship, and my development as a human being. For those of you all that do not know me, and I'm very, very unpretentious, so I'm just Etefia Umana. I'm an alumnus of St. Louis University. I've graduated from the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm the first recipient of the African American Studies degree at the school. I'm also a graduate of the graduate school and of the law school here. I'm president of the board of directors for Better Family Life Incorporated, which is a community organization here in St. Louis that has done a tremendous amount of work in terms of housing, education, business, community efforts. And also I'm an educational consultant for Acumen Educational Consulting, and I'm also a longtime employee of the Archdiocese of St. Louis at Cardinal Ritter College Preparatory High School. And I'm very happy to be here. I'm very happy to see the manifestation and the materialization of this conference. And as Jonathan said, this is a very serious topic. This is a topic that needs to be discussed. The history of it needs to be discussed. The current reality needs to be discussed. Projections for the future also need to be discussed and analyzed or what have you. And I want to have just a conversation just to act as if it's just you and me, and we're having a very candid and frank conversation. That's the only way that I really know how to do things. When I was asked to speak to the Race, Faith, and Justice Conference, I was mildly confused, and I said, are you sure you want me to speak? Sure you want me to speak, because you know me. You know what I'm about, and you know that I'm not into politics. I am not into sugarcoating. I'm definitely not jaded by any stretch of the imagination, but the thing that you will get from me is the straight truth and analysis. That's it. That's all, nothing else. That's the only expectation. So you will not hear anything that's not accurate. You will not hear anything that's not truthful. You will hear, I'm not going to say something is hot when it's cold. I'm not going to say something is close when it's far. I'm not going to say something is ugly when it's beautiful. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, how it is, and how things go. And Jonathan said, yes, I want you to speak. And so I said, okay, I'll do it. And then he said he was going to give, as a part of the speech, an honorarium for the speech. He graciously said that, and I graciously declined. And so any monies generated from this speech will be going back to St. Louis University and to Better Family Life Incorporated. So I just wanted to make sure that that was the situation. All right, so the topic of this conversation is looking at the Clock Tower Accords and doing an analysis of the Clock Tower Accords, where we were, how we got here, and where we currently are, and hopefully where we'll go. And so we're looking at the strivings, aspirations, and the realities of the Clock Tower Accords, very ambitious set of goals that was achieved as a result of community collaboration and administrative collaboration with St. Louis University. Very, very timely, very, very ambitious goals that were set forth with the Clock Tower Accords. We are in an academic institution, and I kind of want to look at this as if this was a semester and where we would be looking at the points of the accords during the course of the semester. And if I had to, and so since we are a university, I'm going to give a grade. And if I have to be honest about, the grade that would be given, it's going to be based upon not, you don't get grades when you're in college or in high school or anywhere else because you've identified a problem. You might get partial credit for that. You don't get credit because you know that a problem exists. You don't get credit for that. You get credit when there's an execution of the problem, when you have an understanding of the problem, when we're able to resolve or solve a problem. That's what you get credit for. And the reality of the situation is that I'm sorry. I forgot one more thank you. I would like to thank my son, Etefia Jr. All right. I cannot forget my son. How did I do that? My son is actually going to be helping me during this presentation. He generated the slideshow for me, and he will be verbalizing some things that I just as things come up or what have you, he'll be verbalizing, trying to make sure that he keeps me on track. I love my son. I'm so happy that he was able to come back to St. Louis for the summer. He's a recent graduate of Loyola University, another Jesuit institution in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I'm very, very happy that he's here and very grateful, and thank you for being here, Etefia, and helping me. All right, so let me go on ahead and continue with my discussion now, but I'm always have to make sure that I pay homage and thanks to those that help. So if the reason why I'm here is to kind of give an understanding of what's going on here. If you are expecting a comfortable speech and like comfort food or whatever, that's not me. If you're expecting a situation where I'm not here to make white folks feel comfortable about themselves, I'm not here, I'm just not where I am. I'm not here to make black folks feel comfortable about themselves. I'm here to just tell the truth and only the truth, and that's my only position here. So the Accords were great, but if you want to be honest in terms of where we are, the grade that would be given would be a D or a D+. That's where we are right now, because again, when you look at it, we have to look at where we are. But the semester is not over, so there's still hope. We might have been able to answer a couple of problems on this one. This essay may be incomplete. But what I'm here to do today is to kind of give a critique, analysis, and recommendations for what we need to do as we go forward, because that's super important. We're not going to be stuck at a D+. This is not going to happen, or a C- or what have you.
At best.
We're going to move. I'm sorry?
At best.
At best, okay. Yeah, so at best, the reality of the situation in the program is that this visionary document, the Clock Tower Accords, is very thoughtful, very well put, very dynamic, or what have you, and a wonderful document that takes the best aspirations of the community, takes the best aspirations of St. Louis University in a collaborative effort in order to make sure that we're able to be the best community that we possibly can be, and the university can really adhere to the Jesuit charism meant for others that it has. At worst, if we look at it, then this is a pathetic attempt at trying to, and fraudulent attempt at trying to manipulate the black community, the black alums, and the black students here in an effort to slow down and halt kind of some of the progress that's being made. That's the worst case scenario. We hope that it is the former as opposed to the latter, that this is not something that's just not sincere, that this is something that will take considerable effort and energy in order to move forward. So, one thing I want to talk about now is revisionist history. All too often what happens in revisionist history, and let me kind of explain what revisionist history is. Revisionist history is basically an attempt at trying to take a particular perspective, and because of it being an inconvenient truth, making it comfortable for people or what have you. And I don't want the Accords at St. Louis University and the history and the development of the Accords to be revised through history. So I want to kind of talk about, I want us to kind of close our eyes. I want us to kind of imagine if this was 100 years from now, and we had, we're talking about the institution of enslavement and the civil rights era. And so we start with the revisionist history, that kind of dynamic. You're going to start with Abraham Lincoln. For some reason, black people had problems and were slaves. And it moves to Abraham Lincoln, who freed the slaves. Thank God for the Republican Party. After the institution of enslavement, after Reconstruction, through Jim Crow or what have you, black people still had problems and weren't able to quite adjust in life. And then Lyndon Baines Johnson and a group of white senators and congresspeople passed the Civil Rights Bill. And then everything became well with the world and black people. That's revisionist history, and it's a convenient history, and it takes out some of the real issues that we have in history. It knocks out the horrors of the institution of enslavement, where black people were looked at as chattel slavery, where we had the same property as a chair or a dog or a duck, where the only kind of crime that someone could be charged with if they raped an African woman on a plantation is trespass to property. And so that takes away that whole dynamic. It takes away the strivings and the mentionings of Frederick Douglass, of Harriet Tubman, et cetera, the many individuals that struggled during the institution of enslavement. It takes away the horrors of Jim Crow and the abuses that happened during Jim Crow. It eliminates and reduces Emmett Till. It reduces Malcolm X. It reduces Martin King, Ella Baker. It reduces Bayard Rustin. It just takes away the reality of black people in this country. And it's convenient because it's a painful history or what have you, but it's not something that's accurate, and accuracy and validation is something that's important and significant. Revisionist history on the civil rights. Now, let me give you another example of revisionist history. Because the sanitation, the whitening of something, the bleaching of the truth. It would be as for you younger people, if you talk about hip hop. All right, I know you all like that genre of music is ever present, definitely on the headphones and on the speakers of a lot of the young people that I work with. And let's pretend if we're talking about hip hop history in a revisionist sense. And in a revisionist sense, if you're talking about hip hop history, you might start off with a rapper from the hard streets of Dallas in Florida named Vanilla Ice. Had a song, and it started off hip hop. It was called Ice Ice Baby. And from there, he passed on the torch to MC Search, who had a gas face. And then from there, he passed the baton to Eminem. And Eminem then passed the baton to Macklemore. And from the hard streets of Australia, Iggy Azalea became hip hop in female history. And then from there, Action Bronson came out and elevated hip hop to higher heights of existence. Now, that's just not true. That's revisionist history. It takes out everything that's black, everything that's significant, everything that's important. You eliminate the last poets who were really some of the founders of hip hop and the founders of the genre in terms of their poetry, their strength, their music, etc. You eliminate the Sugar Hill Gang. You eliminate Nas. You eliminate Jay-Z. You eliminate KRS-One, Rakim, Jay Electronica, many of the other individuals who captured this black art form and moved it forward. And it's revisionist history to whitenize, bleach, and sanitize that thing for a convenient truth. And so that's revisionist history. And what I don't want is that the Accords themselves will be sanitized in a revisionist history way. I don't want it to be 100 years from now, a story is told that there were problems at St. Louis University. The black students had racial issues in some way because black people, we just can't get our stuff together from somewhere from slavery to Jim Crow. We just can't get it together. And the good white administrators at St. Louis University came forth and put together the Clock Tower Accords. And from that moment, it became like a Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney album, and Ebony and Ivory, and we were holding hands, or United Color of Benetton, whatever one suits your boat. And
with Jonathan Smith.
I'm sorry?
With Jonathan Smith.
Oh, yeah, of course, with Jonathan Smith. And they solved the problems, and everything went according to plan, and we're in perfect harmony and the like. And that's just not the truth. So I want to kind of clarify what is the truth of the matter as it relates to the struggles of black people on this campus and the Accords. And I kind of use, even though I'm blind, I'm very visual, so I kind of use, I'm using the slides to take the sting out just a little bit. And help us to kind of laugh at ourselves just a bit. But this is a very serious topic, so take me seriously. The truth about the Accords and how it came to be is very interesting. First and foremost, SLU has had historically, it's a beautiful institution. And you've had a lot of trailblazing moments in St. Louis University. You had a lot of them, trailblazing moments in terms of the admissions of African American students at times during great racial segregation and vitriol and the like. But it has been a struggle, and it hasn't been anything easy, as all institutions have their problems. St. Louis University is not immune from them. So there have been plenty of racial issues that happen at this conference, at this university throughout history and throughout time. And those things can't be swept under the rug. What happened with the Accords is a reflection of what happened on August 9th, 2014 in Ferguson, Missouri. And this is partially what the conference is predicated on. On August 9th, you had the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson. And actually, he was killed about, maybe about a 2 to 3 minute walk from my house. So I was in the midst of everything during the course of the time. The quick trip that burned down from the house is about literally, our subdivision is right next to it, adjacent to it to the west. And during that time, the people of Ferguson had significant issues, and they rose up and resisted in a certain kind of way against the police brutality, against the basically using the citizens of that community as an ATM to fund their municipalities, and a whole host of human indignities that crush and stifle human potential just in general. And St. Louis University is a part of the community. And so first and foremost, it was going through significant transitions as this community was going through significant transitions. For over, 25 years, you had Lawrence Biondi. He was here when I got here, or what have you. The university over the last maybe 10 years had issue with Lawrence Biondi in terms of his leadership. Even though it heralded a whole host of development at SLU, there were problems. So you had several votes of no confidence, and it eventually led to his retirement. In comes Dr. Fred Postello. Dr. Postello, I'm sure he came in, he did not expect this. I'm sure he told his wife, we're making a big vertical move. It's something that's going to be nice. Life is going to be relatively easier. I'm taking this wonderful position at St. Louis University. Being from out of town, I'm sure he did not know about the unfortunate reality that exists in St. Louis. The schizophrenia, the divisions, the vitriolic nature of this community that we exist in, the polarization. We're one of the most, if not the most, racially polarized city in the world. The lack of opportunity as it relates to different individuals or what have you. So we have a lot of different structural issues as it relates to this community. And he's coming in, and he's coming in new. And then he's coming in at a time where the young people are rising up and creating a movement towards equality, and not really having it anymore as it relates to the indignities and the injustices that have been perpetuated among them, on them for years. And it has the eye of the nation, the eye of the world on St. Louis in this time, the time period that he's coming in. So you have this individual who's coming here, who does not know anybody, has no idea about anyone in the community, no idea who he can trust, no idea from his staff point who is competent, no idea on what's going on. But one of the things, to the credit of the university, that happened at this time, and I'll always appreciate this, is that there was a great effort to try to make the madness of what's going on in the outside world and the community at least have a semblance of trying to address that and address the students' concerns who were anxious, both black and white. And that was something that we could really appreciate at the time. And what happened that SLU did that was very, very forward-thinking and very, very gracious was they wanted to engage and be a balm to the community at this time. And so one of the things that happened that led to the occupation was, of course, everyone knows about the history of racial incidents and racism that has happened at the university. Everybody's well aware of those disturbing and disgusting events that have characterized the institution. And as a way to kind of make amends for that, there was and really begin to address the problems and see the university as a part of the community, what happened was an event was set up at Chaffetz Arena. And at that event, it was free and open to the public. You had some of the young community activists and some of the internationally known scholars that are known for racial issues and for social critique were there at the event at Chaffetz in October. So they relatively expeditiously tried to address the issue with the black and white members of the campus and the faculty. And from that event, you know, one of the things that's really underestimated is the youth, the strength of the youth, the intelligence of the youth, the resilience of the youth. And at that time, the youth, the messages that a lot of individuals were giving, they weren't really receptive to it as well as they probably should have been. And what happened was they actually took over, the young people took over the event. They took over the event. The event didn't actually have an opportunity to come to fruition. And then from the Chaffetz Arena, they marched to Ground Zero, or the Quick Trip that was in Ferguson, in a show of solidarity and in order to make sure that the momentum of the movement that had occurred, the dialogue and discussion was going to be there. And then they marched back to St. Louis University. They marched back to St. Louis University, and they went to the clock tower and camped out for about 5 days. So now we have this situation where you have the population at the school that's not used to this, you know, because you have to realize is that one of the safest places on the planet would be the college campus at St. Louis University. Regardless of how the media tries to spin it, it's one of the safest places in the world. And individuals were confronted with both students of St. Louis University and young people from the community that wanted to occupy SLU to deal with some of the issues that have historically tainted the university. So they kept it 100%, as the kids say. They kept it real. And they stayed there and engaged and interacted. And then there's so many of the students that had no idea what was going on. Oftentimes when you're in that ivory tower bubble, you're isolated and insulated from the realities of the horrors that have happened in the community. And the horrors, it's the truth, the horrors of the community, you're isolated. You're taken away from it. You're taken away from it because of the institution and because of the privilege that you exercise, which may be contributing to that horror. And so they had an opportunity to interact and with the young people that were on campus and kind of get an understanding of some of the things that were going on. So you have frantic individuals on the university that are trying to figure out the best ways to handle this situation, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to figure out what is the best remedy for the situation. And to Dr. Postello's credit, and something that I think everybody in the university needs to remember, is that this could have went very, very differently. It could have went horribly, where there was a, if this had been another administrator or what have you, it could have ended up where there was some bloodshed. And then it would have been a different kind of national news. But instead, at the encouragement of Dr. Stephen Bradley, it was encouraged, if you want to know what the issue is with the students and with the protesters, a novel idea, talk to them, find out, engage with them, and figure some things out. Try to have productive dialogue and come to some consensus. That's novel, but unfortunately, a lot of individuals in those positions don't see that as something that's legitimate. But that's what was done. And you had, out of those meetings and those conversations and those dialogues and those disruptions, and let's keep it 100% real, is that a lot of that also had to do with, again, it's not a good look for the university to have protesters on campus. It's just not. And then, and to try to solve it as peaceably as possible. And so I had people from the protest side that were contacting me, and people from the university side as well that were contacting me, people from the administrative side of the university that was contacting me, and I tell everybody the truth. That's it, that's all, nothing else. And out of that, M-Slice, a community organization, Tribex, another community organization, and the Black Student Association signed these accords. And these accords are position points that try to help us to become the best that we possibly can be as a university and as a community. And they were signed. They were signed by the university, and that means they weren't signed by Fred Postello. That's faculty, that's staff, that's alumni, that's everybody at the university and the community. And they had very, very good intentions. So that's the truth about the history of how the Accords came into being.
Access and Success Committee. Access and Success Committee.
Okay, and so what happened was the Access and Success Committee was formed. And the Access and Success Committee was a committee that was formed that was basically members of the St. Louis University community, a couple of members from different community organizations, and me. And when I looked at it, like, and I thought about it or what have you, I kind of thought of everybody's role, and it kind of reminded me of like the Avengers or the Justice League of America. Everybody came to the table with their own set of superpowers and their own roles, and kind of have an idea of what those roles were. First on the committee, and I'll give a brief description of everyone. First on the committee, in turn, is the formulator of the committee, and that would be the Bill Clinton of higher education. That's Dr. Fred Postello. All right, and then secondly, we had Jay Goff, who I refer to as Dr. Numbers, for his penchant for numbers. But you have to understand, Jay, if you're in the audience, he's a great guy, but there's a difference between data, knowledge, information, application. You have to understand all those things when you deal with numbers. Then we had Stephen Bradley, who, because my interaction with Stephen reminds me of Charles Xavier from the X-Men, because he had a bunch of students, and those students, he was influencing the students and guiding the students through this ordeal and through other ordeals or what have you. So that's him. We had Kent Porterfield, who reminds me of B.A. Barabbas from the A-Team, and the enforcer of the group. Then we had, that would be Norm White, the Incredible Hulk. All right. Now, not the Incredible Hulk, it's a difference. The Incredible Hulk is our green character from the Marvel Universe with the Avengers. Norm reminds me more of the Incredible Hulk, the beloved character in Driving Miss Daisy, that was played by Morgan Freeman. And then after that, we have Soul Brother #1. That would be Jonathan Pulfus, student at St. Louis University. We had Alicia, Soul Sister #1, who was a student at St. Louis University in the engineering department. And then we had the community members, Ramona Taylor Williams, who is now in Mississippi at M-Slice, Lolita Zazzaretti, who is, they remind me of the oracles from the Matrix series. And then you have me, all right? And that was me in 1990. All right, I just went retro on you for a moment. And so our little team of superheroes were assembled. And we met, and we talked, we discussed, we debated, and we had, again, wonderful, wonderful aspirations as it relates to the Accords. Had a wonderful because this is an opportunity for us to do some significant, meaningful good work with the Accords. And we met, and we talked, and we discussed, and we came to some serious and significant conclusions. The one thing that I have to point out is that it's a difference between having aspirations, setting an agenda, looking at the Accords, developing them or what have you, and actually the execution of the Accords. The reality of the situation is that if you're looking at things from a corporate perspective or a business perspective, the main thing that you're looking at is how these things are executed. And if you want me to be honest with you, the execution, and nothing happens overnight, I understand that. But if this was a corporate entity and we looked at the signing of the Accords, we looked at the workings of the Accords, the mechanisms in which they're followed or what have you, if this was a corporate entity, there would be some serious reprimands from everyone involved in doing this for the lack of execution on some of these Accords. That's just the reality. So now I want to talk about some of the positive things that have happened on the Accords in terms of some wins, some positive things that occurred with the Accords. And I'm going to have my son, he's going to read some of the Accords. My mind fails me, I'm getting old. These are some things that we classified as wins, some things that are significant and substantial that we were able to get past and done and achieved with the Accords. Etefia?
Increased budget for the African American Studies program.
It was a win. We were able to do that, increase, and African American Studies is near and dear to my heart because out of the 4 degrees that I have from this institution, that is the most significant to me. And it's just real. And we were able to do that after a year or so, and Dr. Bradley was able to get some things for his department, which are very, very important. And so that is something that we consider to be a big W. We have to look at things in terms of W's and L's, even though things are a little bit more nuanced than that. Etefia?
Increased financial aid resources for retention of African American students at SLU.
That was another win, and we got to give it up. We got to give it up. One of the things that was really well done from the perspective of the school is, now we always can do more, but one of the things that was really, really well done was when Jay was able to meet with his team and we were able to try to come up with creative ways to increase the retention. And we understand clearly there was a Gates Millennium Report that was done last year, and it looked at some of the things that, are prohibiting factors in terms of success for students, and particularly the African American students. One of them was finances. So one of the things that did occur was we were able to have competitive scholarships, and some of you in here are recipients of those competitive scholarships that usually when you enter into school, it's a scholar, you get it entering school. But what happened was some sophomores, juniors, and seniors were given some additional resources from scholarship dollars that were made available, and that's a win, and that's something that's very, very significant. Next.
Current scholarship programs to better serve African American populations.
Yeah, that's another win, because that was something that was done, evaluation of the scholarships. We had some significant problems as it related to some of the scholarships, particularly the MLK scholarship or what have you. And at one point, I personally sent more MLK scholars from my school than any other place in the country. We had more coming from Ritter than anywhere in the country. But that unfortunately, over the course of time, had declined very significantly. And there were more individuals that were African American on the selection and advisory panel than there were students of color that were receiving the scholarships, and that was very troubling. So we were able to do some revamping as it relates to that, and some progress was made. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Appointment of a special assistant to the president for diversity and community engagement.
Yeah, appointment for a special assistant. That was something also that was made. Dr. Smith was put into place after about 18 months of meetings and interviews. It was a thorough search that was done. Dr. Smith was appointed. Just in general, I will talk a little bit more about that later as well.
Bi-weekly meetings with an inclusive group, including the president, to continue SLU's advance SLU's efforts on inequality and poverty in the community.
And that happened as well. That was a win. We did have exchange, we did have dialogue over the course of time, and that was something that occurred, and they were interesting, to say the least.
Quality.
SLU sponsorship of a national conference on racial equality. And that's what this is. That's what this is right now. And, you know, that's a win. And this is a start. But it's just a start. And I kind of want to point a couple of things out. That's a win and a loss. And let me kind of explain why. Because originally, when conceiving the conference, it was supposed to be a national conference or what have you. And it doesn't mean that it has to break the bank or be exceptionally expensive. It's just a national conference. You can use a lot of intellectual capital in order to accomplish some of the goals, but it's supposed to be a national conference. And I've been to national conferences, and I've also been to conferences internationally as well. And some of the international conferences I've been to, they were actually national conferences for the country that they were held in, but people from all over the world were in attendance. So how many people from Ireland traveled to come to this conference? Raise your hands. Spain? Anyone from England? Botswana? Nigeria? Cote d'Ivoire? Okay, let's look locally. All right, anyone from Maine traveled for this conference? North Dakota? California? Florida? Anyone travel from Michigan? No. Okay. Oh, okay. East Boogie. Okay, great. All right, anyone from Oklahoma City? Okay, U City. Did anyone come from University City? All right, so I think you all kind of get my point and understand what I'm talking about. The reality of this conference, even though I really like it, the way it's set up. I think Jonathan did a great job of getting the local individuals here or what have you, get the got the panels together, got individuals to participate, but this is far from the vision that was actually put in place. All right, so we have individuals from the city of St. Louis, which are good. They should be packed. All right, well, first thing I want you all to do is pull out your books that were handed to you for the conference with all the scholarly essays and papers that were submitted by the scholars throughout this country that submitted the papers. And I want you to turn to page 74. And I want you to look at it's an essay 8, and it's called Community Menticide, the deliberate and systematic destruction of a group's mind, with the ultimate objective being the extirpation of the group, a retrospective on Dr. Bobby Wright. Did everybody doing that right now? No? You're not doing it because it doesn't exist. Okay? So when you're not doing it because it doesn't exist. There is no booklet. There was no submissions of papers by scholars. There was no, that whole deal or what have you as it originally was conceptualized. But this is a first start it is a good start. And this really should just be the beginnings of a conversation, a series of conversations that need to occur, hopefully in workshops that need to occur throughout the course of the year, which hopefully next year will be planned something bigger and better and in the mold of putting the resources together where this can be something significant. All right, now we got to the wins. Now let's get to the L's. Etefia?
Additional college prep workshops for students in the area's most disadvantaged school districts.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but that didn't quite happen. Go ahead.
Establishment of a K-12 bridge program, including summer programs in the Normandy and Shaw neighborhoods to help increase the numbers from neighborhoods in those areas.
That's critical. The idea is an excellent idea. The need is a profound need for our students here in the city and in the disadvantaged school districts like Normandy. So that's something that has not been done, even though the framework has been put together. And of course, there are some political issues as it relates to that, some dysfunctional issues as it relates to some of those districts. But the university has got to make sure that it puts a little bit more effort in doing that. That's an L, but it's not all on the university. It's also on those individuals of which we seek partnerships because of their relative level of dysfunction. Go ahead.
Establish a community center.
Yeah, we missed that one. Yeah, that hasn't happened so far. But hopefully that'll be something that can happen a little bit later on, just in general. But that's an L.
Commission mutually agreed upon artwork.
Yeah, that one's an interesting one as well. One of the things that we have to kind of examine at this school is, the art of this school. Art is something that's central to all cultures, particularly black culture, just in general. And the school has a lot of art. The unfortunate reality for St. Louis University, and art oftentimes is a reflection of your reality, a reflection of what you aspire as beautiful, of what you aspire as something that's really great, phenomenal, and fantastic. And there's excellent artwork at St. Louis University. But the unfortunate reality at SLU is that the only art work that you saw that was prominent of African American people was one that was tucked aside, and it was of a bare-breasted black woman in chains. A bare-breasted black woman in chains as the only representation of black people in a private space at SLU. That's disturbing, and it's art. It is disgusting, and it's something that needs to be challenged significantly. It really does. Snap your fingers. And absolutely. And so, and it's put in a private place. It's like, at the fundraisers or what have you. You might have, Claire, look at the interesting Negro as they sip on wine and crackers. And that's the representation here. And that's a problem. So we need to have more representation of positive images of black people. We do. Here on campus, other than that image that we have. We also need to make sure that, one of the things, though, that is relatively short-sighted from the perspective of the protesters, and myopic and arrogant, actually, from the perspective of the protesters, is wanting to memorialize simply the 5-day occupation of St. Louis University. I think that was very short-sighted. Again, I'm an equal opportunity offender. So the reality of the situation is that the history of black people on St. Louis University did not happen, and the struggle did not happen with the occupation at SLU. And that wasn't the first occupation. There have been many iterations of occupations that have happened, many iterations of the accords that have happened at St. Louis University. And a more fair representation of that would be a longitudinal piece of art or a series of art picks that show the struggle and show the triumphs and show the aspirations of African Americans on this campus. That's fair, that's right, that's just. But one of the things that was really very troubling to me with that is the fact that Dr. Costello had to field at the mention, and this is how, again, polarizing, how racist, how divisive, and how sick and perverse this society is in Missouri, had to field some of the most virulent, nasty, vicious calls from individuals that said they're no longer going to give any donations to St. Louis University, that they were going to withdraw all support from St. Louis University if there was any kind of memorialization or any kind of positive pictures that were put forth on campus. If there was any support whatsoever to something that should be normal and is ubiquitous throughout the entire campus, they were going to stop their financial support. That's disturbing. That is so troubling. And it was in various newspapers, various media. You have to confront that silliness. It's disturbing. So that's an L so far, but I'm hoping that that will change at some point in time, because that's something that's needed and has to be done expeditiously but thoroughly. Keep going. Etefia.
Center for Community and Economic Development to be integrated with the community center.
All right. That is something that's very important as well. It's critical in its importance. One of the things, in addition to acting and providing resources and information or what have you, there's a need for both students and both academics to study some of the issues, the interrelations of the issues, the structural problems of the issues that are confronted, and coming up with the necessary solutions from an academic perspective. And that's something that's definitely needed. Creating urban institutes where problems are solved. One of the things that I love that Washington University did recently at our building is that the Brown School of Public Policy and Social Work has built a major office and classroom and offering technical support and expertise from Washington University to look at what's going on in the African American community. Now, that's super important, and that's something that St. Louis University should be involved in from various community organizations and various academic divisions. That's a must. So that has not happened, but it is of exceptional importance for that to occur. Etefia.
Race, Poverty, and Inequality Steering Committee.
Now that did happen, but it kind of has fallen apart. All right. Next.
Establish a diversity speaker series.
That also actually did happen, but it needs to be developed even further. That's happened on a limited amount, so we need to make sure that that happens and continues to happen, where we have a diversity of ideas and opinions for students and faculty to from not only just all around the country, but even some of the local voices and the powerhouses and local voices like Malik Ahmed, who's here, that can discuss various issues and solutions and strategies and develop those partnerships that are necessary to really begin to see the sea change. Go ahead.
Bi-weekly meetings with an inclusive group, including the president, to continue to advance SLU's efforts on inequality and poverty in the community. Okay,
notice that's in the win section and it's in the loss section. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain that reason. And first and foremost, it's very difficult to not like Fred Costello. He's a great individual, a really good, solid, and responsive president. But the reality of the situation is, this is what was agreed to. This is what was agreed to in terms of having personal meetings with that group of individuals on a regular basis. And that's something that needs to be continued to be done. Now, the committee has kind of morphed into working groups. They're not as functional as they need to be, but this is what was agreed to. I know that there was a hiring of Dr. Smith, but one thing that has to be asked, and we have to be honest with ourselves, is that in our occupations, in our professions, in those things that we care most about, if there's something of vital importance, you don't send an emissary. You show up. You continue to show up, and you continue to steer the conversation and partner with the individuals there. That is what was agreed to, and that is what needs to continue to happen. It's not good enough sometimes to send an emissary. You have to have a constant check-in. You have to have constant presence that you have to be there. That was what was agreed to. People don't send their representatives to board of trustee meetings. They don't do that. It's too important. You don't send your representative necessarily to some vital negotiations. You don't do that. So the individuals in the community and the individuals in that access committee are just as important as the big wheelers and dealers in St. Louis. And that needs to be recognized, and it's recognized by your presence, not by your substitution. Next tape.
Recommendations.
Oh, yeah. Now, my criticisms of the institution and my praise of the institution are hopefully will never outweigh the contributions that I make to the institutions. So I can't just sit here and just, look at the situation and not make any recommendations and not have hope and sit here and as a jaded critique or what have you. But there are some constant things that we can do that are recommendations that we can do to move things forward and move the agenda forward as time goes by. And that's what we're going to talk about right now. Okay.
6 out of 14.
Oh, yeah. The reason why, thank you, Tape. The reason why I said it's 6 out of 14, that it's a D, is because in any scale, on any measure for the most part, if you get 6 initiatives out of 14, right, it's a failing grade. So I was generous to give it a D+, but I understand we have a little time to make sure that the other objectives and initiatives are met and met with vigor. Continue.
Take the accord seriously.
Yeah,
Budget
so these are some recommendations. First and foremost, the university has got to begin to take the accords seriously. Take them seriously in every way, and take them more seriously. Now, the nature of the institution is one that's very conservative. It's one that's very slow-moving. It's one that, and if you look at like the King letter from a Birmingham jail, where he begins talking about the process of social justice and social change was going at a horse and buggy pace. That would be the nature of the institution. But if you're serious about something, then you do it with all deliberate speed, all available resources. You move things forward in a certain way. A posture is taken of movement. And that's something that's serious. You uncompromisingly pursue your agenda. Uncompromisingly pursue it. Or you're just talking. And in this situation or what have you, one of the things that also was very disturbing is, to me, was the budget did not follow the mission. And we can't take you seriously if the budget doesn't follow the mission. Then you're just talking. It would be as if, and let me explain what I mean. We didn't even begin the process of talking about any type of budgetary expenditures for the initiatives for over a year. That's a problem. You're not serious. You're not serious, and I cannot take you seriously when you don't begin with a vigorous approach towards this dynamic. It is impossible for me to do that. It would be as if you say you want to become a doctor, Yet you take no pre-medical classes. You've not taken biology, organic chemistry, general chemistry, no anatomy and physiology, no genetics, no physics. You have never studied for the MCAT, but to his credit, you've taken the algebra, college algebra, whatever. But how can I take you serious in saying that you want to become a doctor? That's the same thing. If you're saying that you want to move a particular process forward and there's no budgetary outlay, it's not a serious endeavor. And it needs to be questioned. The sincerity needs to be questioned. Dave?
Is anti-imperialism.
Oh, another thing. I think you're missing something, but that's fine. And then a second thing, also as it relates to this in terms of taking it seriously or what have you, is Dr. Jonathan Smith was hired for this position. And the reality of the situation is it's almost like a setup. You know, it's almost like a deliberate setup. You can't hire somebody for a position and then under-resource the office. We can't take you seriously. You can't, and then if they fail or if the results aren't there, then you blame them. That's a setup from the beginning. So we cannot take you seriously. You've got to begin. If you are about the business of healing this institution, remedying the wrongs and ills and omissions that have occurred at this institution for decades, then we have to make sure that the actions that you're taking are reflective of that. Again, I am a mirror. That's all I am. I speak the truth. Etefia. Thank you. Super important. When we looked at the team of individuals, they were individuals that were very skilled. They were individuals that had a lot of capacity, a lot of intellectual power, and the like, good ideas, creativity, etc. But even that was very hard for me to take seriously. And let me explain why. All the members of the team were individuals that either worked for the university, they were employed by the university, or they were students of the university, or they were individuals that in some way wanted something from the institution. But me, Etefia, who looks like Tyson Beckford, spooked the set by the door. Everybody but me. And you can't have that. You need to have individuals that keep the university on point and honest. And individuals that are trying to keep their jobs, trying to impress their new boss, individuals that are trying to that don't see anything wrong with the status quo because things would have been done differently a long time ago had they seen that, are not necessarily the individuals that you need to have to move agendas forward. Again, the nature of the institutions are conservative. They're super slow. And you have to make sure that you have the right mix of individuals to move things forward and to do it solidly. And be secure enough that, okay, I have this team of rivals and this is how we're going to roll. You know, everybody shouldn't be saying yes. It shouldn't be a situation where everybody is comfortable in the meeting, where nothing of controversy is being addressed. That's not the way this stuff is supposed to go if you really want to move things forward in a deliberate, systematic way that's going to be meaningful and impactful. Next.
Re-examine and allocate more resources towards creating a more diverse institution, investing on the front end.
Yeah, that's important. Again, this goes again with budget following mission, all right? Your budget is directly reflective of the mission of the institution. A lot of the issues dealing with race here on campus be it last semester's calling President Obama chicken-eating, watermelon-eating, 360-degree slam dunking coon who sips from streams of grape Kool-Aid, and the baseball incident, to any of the other racial incidents that occur on this campus, and I experienced them as well while I was on campus, from both students and from individuals in administration. A way that you can do that is by really taking things seriously by allocating resources on the front end. The unfortunate reality is Missouri is very polarized. St. Louis is very polarized. So a lot of the students that are here on campus do not have an opportunity to engage with other people that are different. They are in their little worlds, their little silos, and they stay there. They remain there, and they're unproductive there. And they have no real view of the world other than the virulent stereotypes that are perpetuated. And they believe that when they see a black student, they are a reflection of what they've seen on TV. And that's not right. And that's why we have the situation that we have right now, a lot of the racist things where students become uncomfortable. I was talking to a student from St. Louis University the other day, yesterday, and that student said that they didn't believe that if SLU didn't have to, they wouldn't deal with black people on any level at all because of this tribalism and this xenophobia, internal xenophobia that we have here. It's really deep. And a lot of the racial issues can begin to become dismantled and taken down the more individuals of color that we have on campus, the more there's an opportunity to engage. Then that breaks down the ignorance. But in order to do that, you have to have some level of investment. That costs money. But we buy and spend money on those things that are important to us. Now, you cannot tell me reasonably that you can build a $100 million dorm, buy a hospital within the last year, 2 years, but you don't have money for black students. That's just not reasonable. That doesn't gel with reality. And a lot of people say, okay, well, that's part of a long-term strategic plan, and that ultimately is going to bring individuals in, et cetera. It was something that was done before my tenure here, and it has been put into place. But now we're in an economic crisis and financial crisis where we're about $5 million behind, underwater, and this, that, and another. You can come up with any excuse in the world, but you've got to, again, put your money where your mouth is and have the courage to do so. Etefia.
Myth of meritocracy.
Oh, yeah, that. All right, one of the things that also we have to look at while we're doing the analysis of this situation is there's a whole bunch of ideas that people have is that, well, black people or people, students at risk or what have you, are in the condition that they're in because they didn't put forth all the will in the world. They didn't have the fortitude to do it. They didn't have the skill or the hard work. They just didn't discipline themselves to do what they needed to do. And that people who do things that they feel is necessary are the only ones that end up being successful in this world. They're the only ones that can thrive. They're the only ones that can make it. That's a lie. It is the myth of merit. That's a lie. There are individuals that are born into this society that have inherent advantages off top. And that's something that we've got to realize. It's the same thing. Let's look at it. Let's look at it from the perspective of institutions with certain endowments. You know, institutions with certain endowments are always going to have more capital than other institutions because they have their endowments are bigger than. So they have fund managers. They're able to strategically do things in a certain kind of way, which will end up giving them more money and more of an advantage than other institutions. It doesn't mean that the smaller institutions with no or zero endowments aren't working hard or what have you. It just means you already have an advantage put forth. So it's a lie that merit is the basis for admissions and you just didn't do what you needed to do. That's a lie. That's a big lie. Some individuals have internal advantages, and we have got to begin to look at that and look at that honestly. I'm talking about students. We have more excuses in the book about why there are no black students here. They can't get in, not qualified, not there, they don't exist. No, that's a lie. They are here. And this gets back to one of the things that I was talking earlier about the college prep programs, the bridge program, et cetera. One of the things that St. Louis University does very, very well are the TRIO programs, the talent search programs, or what have you. Unfortunately, they don't try to recruit those students to come to St. Louis University. But that's something that's needed. I want to talk about a particular scholarship, and I'll kind of illustrate my point here at St. Louis University. Just let you know you can kind of do whatever in the hell you want to do. There's a scholarship here at St. Louis University. It's called the Jesuit Excellence Scholarship. And there are about 27, 28 Jesuit schools in St. Louis. DeBerg, St. Louis University, not Jesuit schools, but Catholic schools. St. Louis University, the SMET, a whole bunch of those schools are Catholic schools. And what St. Louis University has done is they've set aside scholarships over the last few years specifically for individuals who come from those schools. That's good. You have individuals in the Catholic tradition that come from those schools, and then they come to St. Louis University. That's a good thing. But let's kind of analyze this a little bit further when you look at numbers. St. Louis University has an average ACT of about 28, average GPA of about 3.8. That's the average or what have you. And when you begin to look at the Jesuit scholarship, you have a 23, I think, or 22, and a 3.2 gets you into SLU and gets you money to go to SLU. So now let's look at it's a racial blind scholarship. Now, doesn't have anything to do with race to make you competitive for this scholarship. But let's be honest with each other when we analyze this. It goes to 27 schools, and those schools are about 95% white, 95%, about 89% Catholic, right? And so what this scholarship, and then if you look at who attends those schools, those Catholic schools, individuals of upper middle income, usually, to higher incomes attend those schools because they cost about $14,000, $15,000 a year, some of them cost $10,000 or what have you, so you have to be able to afford those schools even though some of them have aid. So, in effect, a gang of scholarships are put forth to students, largely who are white, Catholic, and who are rich. So St. Louis University has an affirmative action policy for rich white students in suburbia. You know, that's essentially what it boils down to. Now, the reality of the situation is that is a function of the desire of the institution. Those are the students that they want here. That's the reality. So you put forth the resources in order to make that happen. You're not ashamed about doing that. They don't even meet the academic averages of your institution. Their testing is lower in order to qualify. Their GPA is lower in order to qualify for this scholarship. It's not higher, it's lower. And so these are students with all the advantages and exposure that you can have as a student. And you get preferential treatment. And it's not like, okay, race-based in law or in policy, but it's race-based in fact. So let's keep it real. The school, as a function of will, can do anything that it wants. And so the reality of the situation is this. It is a shame that St. Louis Public does not have those same advantages. And one of the things that was wonderful when I was a student here is that we had kids from St. Louis Public, from Vashon, from Roosevelt, from Soldan, getting degrees in computer science and mathematics and art and different programs here, doing very well. So there's a whole myth of meritocracy. It's not based on merit. And if you can make exceptions and put forth resources towards those students that have the most, then what are you going to do to enforce your charism, which is looking at people with the least? Is it real or is it talk? Let's be real. Continue, Etefia.
Beyond the Accords.
Did I miss one?
No?
No? Okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
all right, beyond the Accords. At this point, a 2-year point has passed. 2 years, approximately, since this wonderful document that came into place. 2 years. And we should be much further than where we currently are right now. At this particular point in time, we should be beyond the Accords and begin the process of looking at other things that we can do to dismantle systems of oppression, to dismantle systems of inequity, to really live up to greater good. That's where we should be. So I'm going to give you a couple of things that I think probably should be put in place in order for that to happen. Etefia?
Black professors.
Oh, very good point. Now, black professors, all right? We need more black professors here. That's just the reality of the situation. One of the things that SLU did that I think was excellent in between the years of 1990 and the years of 2000 was they really had an aggressive platform, an aggressive stance on trying to get African American professors here. Black professors have a huge benefit to the institution, a huge one, both, of course, in terms of tangible and some intangibles or what have you. If it wasn't for the black professors at this campus, you know, just so much wouldn't have, if this is for both black and white students, would not have been done. You know, when you have, again, during that golden age of St. Louis University where they were really striving to make, get a lot of black professors in, they got some of the most qualified and competent individuals. They aggressively sought them from HBCUs. It was an awesome thing. Now, what's the benefit of having black professors at the school? Benefit of having black professors at the school are many. One of the things I always remember when I was here at St. Louis University is that if I was in a lecture hall and there were 200 kids in a lecture hall, and I would always try to get, you know, either the top grade in the class or maybe in the top 3 or something like that. And you'd always, you know, I'd always say, oh, you know, you did excellent. You had the top grade in the class. You had one of the top grades in the class. This was a great job. And, which is fine. Thank you, professor. You know, that's great. But the reality of the situation is they'd never ask you to do research. They'd never ask you to participate in a journal publication that they were doing. They would never ask you for any kind of other experiences which helped to separate the students. You know, it wasn't anything intellectually different from, with me or what have you. The only thing that kind of set me apart was the race. And then when we hired black professors here, that's when, particularly in the department I was in, the African American students and some of the white students that may not have been picked up were the top students in the department. We were actually doing significant, meaningful, substantive research. When I was an undergrad, I was published in a few different scholarly journals, which is very rare for an undergrad. Traveled around the world with Dr. Aaronette White to present papers at major conferences all over the country, doing the same for some real relevant, pertinent research here in at the school. And the black students became the top students in the departments because there was an unbiased recognition of talent and then a real yearning to develop that talent. And that was something that's super important. That's a tangible benefit from having black professors here. Another benefit is, you know, very few black students would be comfortable in crying on a white professor's shoulder or in an office with the major microaggressions and the macroaggressions that happen on a daily basis that are racist on this campus. And so that's a benefit. When you have racial issues, it is the black professors oftentimes that are the ones that show up to help be interpretive guides to the between the students or whatever the issue may be. So it's a very important value in having black professors here. And SLU did an excellent job of recruiting black professors, but we've got to do more. The law school in particular was really, really good in terms of Leland Ware being full professor. I believe now there are about 4 full professors at the university. You have Eddie Clark and a couple of others that are full professors, but we have to do more and be aggressive and assertive in hiring them. I think that one of the professors that was doing the restorative justice as it relates to the baseball team was also a black professor. And you know, a lot of times doing this extra work, this very tangible work that makes a difference to the students and the quality of lives and brokering relationships with the university, they don't get paid for that. It's not extra. It's not like they just advise 15, 20 students. They have to go the extra mile all the time in dealing with the various community dysfunctions that exist. So it's a need to hire more. And we can't say, okay, well, we're more than the national average. The national average is extremely poor. We have to make sure that we're hiring black professors for the very needed functions. And a lot of, again, it has a lot of benefits for students, both black and white. Next.
Real community partnerships.
Yeah, real community partnerships. Now there's a way, and there's several ways in which this university can really have some community partnerships that can be really substantive. And if you have a creative group of individuals that are real thinkers and are able to process this stuff, it could be significantly a win-win-win situation for a whole host of people. Let me give you an example. There is a program here through the St. Louis University, a partnership between St. Louis University and the Archdiocesan Catholic Education Office. And what it is in that program, there are individuals that work for the Archdiocese in the various schools, the aforementioned schools, that can take classes at St. Louis University towards a master's in EDD or a PhD, all right? And they do so at pennies on the dollar. They do so at pennies on the dollar. And some of these programs are accelerated, so it's convenient for the individuals that are participating in that program. It's a very, very innovative program that helps people from the Archdiocese get a degree. It helps SLU because you have a greater alumni base. It helps the students in the Archdiocese because there's best practices and training, better training that's available as a result of that. And that's a wonderful program, low cost or what have you, to different people. Now, the beneficiaries of that program, again, because you're looking at the Archdiocesan system, will primarily be white. And there's a way, if you just think a little bit harder, and this is one of the things that I'm going to propose to SLU at some point in time. They may tell me to go to hell after this speech. And if they do, I understand. But one of the things that I'm going to propose is that whole same thing can be done with community organizations and partnerships in order to help their employees get better skills, more certifications, more degrees or what have you. Same thing can happen with some creative partnerships with community organizations. And that way you could increase your percentage of African American students that are here, the percentage of black alumni, which could also be a network to give back to the organization. You eliminate or reduce some of the climate issues as it relates to racial issues when you have more black and brown people here. And, you can do the same thing for those community organizations that you do for the Archdiocesan system and help more people and really understand what your mission is deeper. It just takes creativity, and that's a function of will. It doesn't take a lot of money. There are many, many different ways to do it. You just have to have the right people around.
Did you benefits for contract?
Oh, you said what?
Benefits for employees.
Oh, another thing that could be done, thank you, that's very interesting and could be done would be looked at is, there are a lot of people that to increase African American students here, there are a lot of people that work on the campus of St. Louis University that students see every day, that sometimes are confidants to students and sometimes are here for many, many years, and they're invisible to the university and definitely don't receive the same kind of benefits that other people have. And those are the individuals that are the cafeteria workers, the contract employees, and different things of that nature. It's real. You can be creative enough to say, okay, they're not a part of our benefits package because they work for another entity, but they're here and they're part of the fabric of this community for years. Why can't they, have it where summer at SLU becomes available to these low-wage workers at discount rates for their children? Some of those K-12 or college prep opportunities become available to the employees of those students, or that a competitive scholarship or scholarships be set aside for students, because all the employees here get tuition remission for their kids. So the kids don't have to pay a dime. But those individuals that toil invisibly on a regular basis because it's more competitive for SLU to contract out their labor, they don't have access to it. And the attainment of a higher education at such a prestigious institution remains a fantasy. So again, there are many different ways in which we can increase membership to the alumni basis at St. Louis University and make it a little bit browner. Etefia.
Board of Trustee composition.
That's what's up. All right? Board of Trustee composition. Now, part of the issue that we also have here is the fact that the composition of the board is almost a reflection of the composition of the community. They're dissociated from the community, out of touch, not intricately involved in anything that deals with social justice in any kind of way, in any meaningful way, or what have you. And Dr. Costello gets a lot of pushback from the Board of Trustees, has to politic from the Board of Trustees, even on the art piece that we talked about earlier, simply because the complexion of the board is not a complexion or reflection of the community. Therefore, the values are different, the perspectives are different, and definitely in the day-to-day interaction, they may see things quite different. So one of the things that may be important in order to dispel some of the ignorance that exists and permeates through all levels of, and you have some board members that are good, that work on the Ferguson Commission and different things of nature, but really, of course you want the bankers, you want the individuals that are corporate leaders, you want those individuals that have access to resources in order to help fund the institution and if not fund the institution, help us to get the resources necessary in order to perpetuate the institution. That's fine. But you also do need those individuals who are reflective of the community, who can address the board as equals on the board, as equals on the board, not a subcommittee, not a visit, but as equals on the board, making decisions and policies as it relates to this institution. These are just some real simple things that can occur. Anything else?
What students need to do?
What students need to do. One of the things the students need to do in order for this situation to continue to progress is do what you did in order to get here. Keep the university honest. Just keep the university honest. The exact same things that you did in order to get to this point and come to the table, you need to continue doing until there are some significant results. You need to make sure that, because again, the unfortunate reality is that the nature of the institution is one that is conservative. It's one that is slow moving. It's one that just takes a lot of time to do anything. Red tape, bureaucratic, crazy. Never doing anything with deliberate speed, unless it's building a hospital and a dorm. Buying a hospital and building a dorm. Then you do things very fast. So you have to make sure that you are keeping them honest, continuing to stay engaged, continuing to make sure that you're very, very diligent, continuing to make sure that you are partnering in many ways with other schools and other institutions in the area to make sure that you're doing what you need to do. You got to make sure that you're doing that. Having think tanks to make sure that you all are focusing in on what are the best ways to move a bureaucratic administration to do things that they're supposed to do, that follow with their institutional mission. So you need to make sure that you're doing those things, linking up with each other, linking up with other allies that exist in order to do that. But you've got to do things to keep the university honest and make sure that they're able to do the things that are necessary in order to move forward. That is a must. Dave?
Last but not least, how came it yours?
Yeah. How came it yours? A lot of people will have resistance to doing anything and act as if the university is doing black and brown people, they're doing us favors. That they're not supposed to do this, even though a lot of this stuff is in the mission. That it's not the responsibility of the institution, but it's the responsibility of the individual. And, okay, there may be some merit to some of that. But let me kind of give you another perspective. Again, always study. Always do the research that's necessary so that your arguments are well thought out. This is a statement in the classic 1904 text Soul of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. Preeminent scholar. I stood side by Shakespeare, and he did not wince because he's just as brilliant. And he begins to talk about your country in terms of the attitudes that white Americans have towards black Americans. The dual consciousness that black people have, double consciousness. And he starts saying, your country. And he asks the critical question. Your country, he's not making a statement, he's asking a question. Your country. And then he asks, how came it yours? Question mark. How did this country become yours? How did it come to existence that it is yours? And he starts talking about the gift of black people to this country and the development of this country. And that the statement that is yours is just a lie. It's a lie like the myth of meritocracy. And I have to ask this question. Your university, how came it yours? One thing that we have to keep in mind is that this is a Jesuit institution, and the Jesuits have done many great things in education. But there's a little secret, a dirty, dirty little secret. The Jesuit institutions had significant financial trouble in the 1800s. The Jesuit institutions, Georgetown, also as other institutions in this country did, owned slaves. Black people of this country that were chattel, used, dehumanized, manipulated. The labor was extracted, whipped, beat, treated as less than human beings. And when they got into financial trouble, they sold those slaves in order to make sure that they were able to balance their budget. It was a very schizophrenic reality with the Jesuits. And there's one thing that they did that was really great is that they documented very, very well. You had other Jesuits that were disgusted with the perversions and the beatings and whippings of these religious men on their enslaved chattel. And in order to save the Jesuit institutions, and St. Louis University is a beneficiary of that system, they sold African people to make a profit, to sustain the university. So your viability and your existence is predicated on the decimation, separation, and dehumanization of a group of people. So how came it yours? That's how it came yours. That's what's going on. So don't talk about what you cannot do and why you cannot do something. Why you don't have a responsibility to do something. Because we know your dirty little secret. An apology is great. We apologize for what happened and our history as it relates to the institution of enslavement. That's great. You recognize us as human beings and recognize that you should have some acknowledgement of that sordid history that exists. But what's more important than a tepid apology is making sure that you live up to the promises that you made, to the agreements that you cultivate. If you don't do that, You are just talking, and that's not acceptable. I have greater faith in this institution that the charism of the Jesuits has truth. Now, I need you to show me that. Thank you.
As I stated, this was going to be enriching and much needed and serious. This concludes day 2 of 3 of the Race, Faith, and Justice Conference. We hope to see you in the morning, of course, bright and early. What time is Regina? 9. Registration at 10 a.m. We get a little bit more sleep then. Hope to see you there. Again, this was sponsored by the special assistant to Dr. Pacello, the Office for Diversity and Community Engagement, Dr. Smith, the Black Student Alliance, and African American Studies. Have a good evening, everybody.